All right, we're back. We are COMP397 in the winter 2018 semester, and it's week 5, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about collisions, sounds, and the scoreboard UI, and we're going back right now into keyboard controls because you know what? Making a good game sometimes requires keyboard controls as opposed to mouse. How do we do that? So, starting off, when you think about what keyboard controls are, I want to take you back to W3 Schools, right? W3 Schools talks about how to get keyboard input through JavaScript. Notice it's like event.keycode. You're creating keycode events in JavaScript, right? And so you got to think about what kind of events these are. Where are the keyboard event handlers and event listeners going to attach to? Keyboard event listeners. Where are they going to be attached to? Is it going to be on an object? Is it going to be, where is it going to be? How does this work? Well, if you think about this, it's on the DOM, the document. So once you create keyboard controls, they're created for your entire game. It's part of the document, not an object. It's not part of a scene. It's part of the entire DOM, right? In this case, we're going to be using key codes. And key codes are ASCII character codes for each of the keyboard keys, right? For example, ASCII code 27 is for the escape key. So we need to have some friendly means of keeping track of this because you know what? I don't want you guys to remember, key code 65 is the A button, right? So we want to kind of track these things a little bit easier by creating a configuration file, almost like a key map. So let's do it. That's the first part of our keyboard control. So I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to go to config. Here's my config. I'm going to add a new file called keys. I'm going to go module config export class keys. And inside my keys, I'm going to talk about my arrow keys, right? Here's my arrow keys. I'm going to also have the WASD keys, right? They're just movement keys. Maybe my space bar too, right? Those are the keys I'm going to outline. So we're going to make them public statics. Public static left arrow. I can't make them so they're kind of like constants too, but it's going to be number 37, right? Public static, right arrow, up. And that's going to be it's just going to be a number, a key code. You don't have to remember them. This way I'm making it so I never have to remember my key codes. And my number is equal to 38. And public static, down arrow, is equal to 40. Now, I don't need up and down arrows for my game. I'm making a generic keyboard manager for all games, right? So you guys can use this for your first playable. So the W key is going to be a number, which is going to be equal to 87. The public static A key is a number that's equal to 65. Public static, the S key is going to be a number that's going to be equal to 83. Public static, the D key is a number that's going to be equal to 68. Those are all the keys. And we have one more, which is the space bar, which is going to be public static space. And you can add other ones too. You can figure them out. Actually, one of our students from the first class, he put up some examples here. If you go to keycode.info, you can see that press any key to get the key code. So if I go T, it's 84. If I press H, it's 72. If I press G, that's 71. Right? So you can get all the key codes for all the keys. Shift, right? 16. Shift S, you can't do a Shift S. 83. Tab, 9. Escape, 27. Right? Some kind of the 1 button, the 2 button, the 3 button, all those buttons are here. I think it's a really good site to go to, very useful. All right, so those are all the keys. We did that part. And guess what? We're not done because we added this file. It's a file. we have to add into our index.html. Because it's going to be used by our keyboard manager, probably should come a lot earlier, like in our config section. So we're going to add another config section, top of our index.html. We're going to call this keys, and we're going to go into our scripts, core, reference.ts, and do the same thing. So I just want to keep on. It's good to be consistent. That's all I'm trying to do. So we don't have a config in here. Well, that was interesting. Oh, here it is. It's like, wait a minute, where's my configs? It's right here. So config.keys. Yes, there we go. And again, later on, we're going to organize this reference file a little more. Right now, you don't need it. Okay, so great. I've got my configuration for my keys, but just what keys are. But now we get to think about how to do this. I don't want to add my keyboard controls inside of an object. Let me put this up on GitHub for you so you have it right now. So save all. I'm going to say added key codes. Okay. And so add, yes, push. Okay, so I don't want to just, I don't want to add to an object. I want to add my keyboard as a manager. So here's my keyboard manager. And if you think about where it's going to be added, I'm going to add it. The only time I'm going to add things to my game.ts file is when it's something global, right? Which is one of these. My keyboard, or if I later on when we talk about gamepad, I'm going to show you how to use the gamepad as opposed to a keyboard, right? I want it to be global, right? So I'm going to go managers, new file. I'm going to call this the keyboard manager, keyboard.ts. And the keyboard manager that I'm going to create is fairly straightforward again. Okay, so a manager, module managers. Wow. Export class keyboard. All right, so keyboard manager. And in my keyboard manager, I'm going to have the basic things, right? Private instance variables. I can also have some public instance variables as well, because I'm going to make them. I'm not going to make them properties because it's going to be pretty serious if I do that. But I can if I want. Maybe later on we'll go and when we optimize, we'll think about making things that are public like this a little bit more reasonable. Private methods and public methods, right? So I always try and do this. All my new classes, and I recommend you get into the habit of scaffolding out things you're going to put in, or as an organization. It's almost like a coding style, so that the people that are in your team know where everything is in your classes. They can search for it quickly, right? So in my private, I'm not going to put anything, but in my public, I'm going to have several switches that I'm going to turn on and off. I'm going to say public move forward, which is going to be a Boolean. Public move backward, which is going to be a Boolean. They're all going to be Booleans. Public move left. Public move right. Public jump, maybe, for those people who are doing platformer. Public enabled. I can maybe turn off my keyboard controls, right? Public paused. Maybe I can figure out a way to pause my keyboard controls, right? Or pause the game, right? So some kind of controls, right? So again, I can think about they're on or off, on or off. In my constructor, now this is where it gets funky. Please forgive me when I do this, because some of you may not understand what I'm going to do, but I will explain it if you ask. I'm only telling you this because it's not normal. So I'm going to say this dot enabled, right? I'm going to set it to true for now. We did false by accident the other time. Then I'm going to say the document, this is new, add event listener. So I'm adding an event listener to the document object itself. right? And I'm listening for a key down event. Key down event is going to have an event handler, which I'm going to call this.onKeyDown, which I don't have yet. I'm going to bind it to this document. This is new. And I'm not going to let it bubble. I'm going to say, bubbling is not going to be allowed, right? Some options I can put in. I'm going to do the same thing with key up. So there's a key down and a key up event. And I'm going to just change this local method that I'm using to either a key down or a key up, which I haven't written yet. I'm binding because what binding does is it creates the event listener. When I want to remove this, I can unbind. Right now, we're not going to unbind. Okay, but eventually we're going to come back and figure out a way. Sometimes we need to unbind an event. Like let's say, for example, I don't want any keyboard control whatsoever, right? I can unbind the event if I want. For now, though, this is going to work every time. This is the format that I want you to use. The next part is I want to make some public methods. Actually, yes, public methods. If I have a public onKeyDown method, which is going to be, it's going to take an event variable that's going to be generated by this event right here. This event will generate a variable called the event variable. And it's going to be of type keyboard event. Keyboard event. It's going to return void. I'm going to create a switch statement, right? And I'm going to switch the event.keyCode. Remember we talked about this? They're all key codes. And here we go, my friends. I'm also going to have a public onKeyUp event. Okay? And it's going to be the same thing on event, which is a keyboard event. Also going to return void. And I'm going to put the switch in there in a second too. But you're going to see how it looks. So I'm going to say something like this: case config.keys.w. So it's the W key, which is the up key, right? Then I'm going to say case also config.keys.up arrow. You can see how that comes up. Then do something. That make sense? Then do something. There we go. And if you think about this, if I duplicate this for a second, I'm going to have the A key, which is the left arrow, right? And do something else. And I'm going to do the same thing with the S key. Notice I'm using two. This is called fall through. So if you have two conditions right here and then a break, both conditions will trigger the code block after the last condition. All right, so I don't have to do each individual one. I can do two at once. By the way, this is looked down upon because if you have a lot of fall through, you may have the wrong, in some certain circles from a control perspective. That's why it's looked down upon. You might have the wrong, you might do two things at once. It's almost like you want to do breaks for each one, right? And you don't have to do that in this case. Break means that you're going to do this, and then before the break, do some commands. This is the switch syntax, right? So S is the down key, right? Down arrow. And D is the right arrow. Well, so either D or right arrow will do the same thing. Now you might configure your game so maybe the right arrow and the arrows are used by the player 2, and the WASD keys are used by player 1. In which case you'd have to do this up differently. Okay. But for now, my game, whether it's W or up arrow, will work the same way. Then you also want to include the case where it is a space bar. Okay, and there's other ones. For example, I might have my space, and my space bar is going to be my jump. Okay? Now, how do I trigger it? I can just say that it's true. So this dot, so move forward, right, is equal to true. This dot move left is equal to true. all I'm doing is switching the flag on. Okay, you'll see what I'm doing in a second. This dot move back, right, is equal to true. And then this dot move right is equal to true. This is where it gets different. And again, you can put other ones like this, where this dot jump is equal to true. All of these, because they're all public, are testable. I can test to see if I'm moving forward, moving back, jumping. I can test when I'm pressing the button. And if I'm doing one of those, I can make code do something, right? So now that I've got all this, I've got my, I'm going to duplicate all this whole switch statement up to here, copy it, and put it inside my key up event. But instead of making it true, it's going to be false. So whenever I take my hand off, my finger off the key, it'll turn it off, right? So it'll stop immediately. So this is all false. And that's it. That's keyboard controls 101. So what this does is it creates a keyboard controller kind of thing, a keyboard class that I can use. Keyboard manager. Now again, because I added the keyboard manager, in order for me to make this work, I got to go to my index.html, and under managers, I got to think about this. Do I need to know about collisions for my keyboard? Do I need to know about scoreboard? No, but maybe I'll put it first because keyboard is kind of a fundamental thing, right? How about my scene? Does my scene need to know about my keyboard, right? Like these are the things that you have to think about. So it's going to be keyboard. Keyboard.ts, right? Keyboard.js. And then just to be complete, I'm going to go to my core references, and where my managers are right now, I'm going to put a reference to my keyboard control. Board. All right, cool. So I've got my keyboard attached, but I have to test it. How do I do that? Well, this is the one time, like I said, I'm going to go into my core folder, into my game.ts, I'm not going into my scene because this is attached to all my scenes, right? If you think about this. And in my start method, I'm going to develop a way of keeping track of this. There's two places I want. I want my keyboard to be instantiated here. I'm going to say something like let keyboard manager. We have type managers.keyboard. Okay, so I create a reference to it. And then when I instantiate it, which I would do down here in my start method, definitely not going to live in my main. Main is only switching, right? So it's either going to be in my start method or it's going to be somewhere earlier. I think it's best to live in here. And I'm going to say something like keyboard manager is equal to a new managers.keyboard, right, which instantiates the object. Now this only lives here. This only lives in my main game.ts, and I want to be able to share it across my entire game, right? References. That goes back to my objects under my game.ts, which again should be a manager. This is almost like my game manager class, right? And I can kind of save my public static keyboard manager of type managers .keyboard. So what this does is it creates a static object that I can reference from anywhere, right? But I haven't created the reference yet, right? I made the object to hold it. This is a container. That's all this does, right? But my container is empty until when I instantiate my keyboard, I have to make a reference, just like I've done with my stage. I'm going to send my keyboard to the objects.game. Keyboard manager is equal to keyboard manager. And this, my friends, if I did properly, should enable my keyboard. Sorry. Should enable my keyboard manager. That's why it's a problem. Let's rename this thing. I spelled it wrong. I was like, wait, why isn't this working? Oh, yeah. Keyboard manager. There we go. Yeah. So Now that I've got this done, then what I can able to do is, because it's global, well, it's inside my game object, objects.game. I can do this. I can go to my scenes, right? Or in my actually, I want to go into my object, my plane object, right? Because that's the only one that's moving in this case. So here's my plane. And instead of me doing this, take a look. I move my move does this. It uses the mouse, right? I don't want to use my mouse anymore. Let's just comment this out. I want to say something like this. If, so actually, let's just make some more comments here so you know what I'm doing. This is mouse controls, right? And this is keyboard controls. So this is how it works. If I say this.x, if objects manage, or actually, sorry, managers. No, I was right. Objects.game dot keyboard manager, right? Dot move left. If that's true, the only way that's going to turn true is if I press the button down, right? If it's true, then this.x minus equals to, let's say, 5 pixels. That's too slow. We'll see that in a second. And if, on the other hand, objects.game.keyboard manager dot move right, this.x plus equals to 5. Yay, that's so complex, right? Now here's the great thing about this. I can make it asymmetrical. Let's say you took damage, you're playing a game where you're in a tank, took damage from your right side, you can't go that fast this way, you can reduce that. You can change you can keep track of your speed. Speed right, speed left, speed forward, speed back. If you want to, you can have lots of control here, right? Well, let's see how this works. Does it work, first of all? How about that? We just made the keyboard manager, but we haven't tested it. So going back to this, if everything works, then yeah, right?
Yay.
It's more
Yay.
retro feel. It's harder, it's way harder, because I gotta avoid the clouds and I gotta not take chances, right? Because if I take a chance, like for that one, I will die. There's no way of, like that one. Woo! That was like a near miss, right?
Yay.
Almost got that one.
Yay.
Oh. Okay, I'm not going to go for that one. See, it kind of changes the game a lot, right? Because you don't have the same control, and I can't do this anymore as easily. Look, see, I can't. Make sense? So the keyboard controls work. The only thing I want to change, because remember where I start. If I go back to if I go back to here, and if I refresh, you can see that I start over here, right? I don't want to start over there. And that's going to be handled by my start method. My start method starts my y at 430, and I got to think about my x. This dot x is equal to 320. So in the middle of my screen somewhere, right? And if I do that, then I have control here in the middle, right? And then I can move my plane around. I also got clobbered too when I did that, right? All right, so some cool things going on. I mean, I'm pretty happy with this right now. And so let's put this up on GitHub. So I'm going to say, okay, I got all this. I added keyboard manager. And guys, that should complete everything you need for your first playable in terms of, your keyboard controls. Yes. Mouse click is a different thing. That's your left mouse down, right? So it's like a keyboard control, but you make another manager, right? So going back to JavaScript mouse, if I type in JavaScript mouse control, mouse events, right? So notice that there's mouse down, mouse, and so on. If I go to W3 Schools, I want to see if there's one that's specific to, well, it's the events examples, but the event objects has different kinds of events. So on mouse down, right, occurs when the user presses a mouse button, any mouse button, right? The problem is you can't separate left mouse button from right mouse button this way, right? It just does any mouse down, right? On double click, it'll do. On context menu, this is when the user right clicks on an element to open up a thing. This is an element thing, right? And there is no right click, that you see here, right? So on blur, on input, these are all the different kinds of events. So all you need to do is on mouse down. To put on mouse down, any button will make the bullet fire. Okay? Which is just a simple event. Yeah, so I have most of the stuff I want. I mean, I'm pretty good here, but what I want to do is I want to finish off my game because I want to make my first playable. My first playable is going to have a start screen, my play scene, score, and my game over scene, right? So I'm not quite there. I need a couple things left, and I want to put this up on GitHub pages. Like I told you guys, I want to put this up on GitHub pages. How do I do this? So, all right, so if you see this, I've got my scenes. In my scenes, I have my play scene, and I have my start scene. My start scene is pretty bland. It says welcome label. I don't want to say welcome label. I'm going to say mail pilot. Here's my mail pilot. And it's 60. It says console us. Here's the start button, right? That's pretty simple. But let's put an ocean in the background. Might as well, right? So I can do the same thing. I can say like a private underscore ocean, which is of type objects.ocean, right? So in my start method, I do this, but I want to kind of instantiate my ocean first. This.ocean is equal to objects.ocean. And I want to pass in, if I'm not wrong right now, the asset manager, a reference to my asset manager, right? And what else do I need? What else do I need for objects.ocean, right? Oh yeah, new would be nice, right? And then down further, I need to instantiate this right. So welcome label and start button, it's got to be above my ocean. So I'm going to do add my ocean, add the ocean object, and then this dot add child, this dot underscore ocean. And also during my updates, I want to this dot underscore ocean dot update, because otherwise my ocean will never update, will never move. Okay, cool. So now I've added an ocean to my background, and I made the thing called say mail pilot. All right, let's see how that looks. Does it right? I'm pretty good, right? All right, but this is black. I want to make it yellow, so let's go and change that. So instead of black being here, I can change this to yellow, right? Start button is not really great. I mean, I can modify it, but for now, for first playable, I'm good, right? It's good enough. Now I gotta change my start. When I go to start, I want to go to my end screen. I want to have an ocean like this too, right? So because I want to have some kind of thing that makes sense. So again, just like I did here, I want my ocean, all the same stuff. So I'm going to go back to my over scene, and I'm going to add the ocean. In fact, what you can do with VS Code is you can split screen. I'm going to split screen here. And what I can do is on this side, I want the over scene. And on this side, I want the start scene. And you can see that I can compare one to the other. Like anything I'm missing. Start button. And I added my ocean in here, so I might as well do this too. So that way I don't have to cut. I just cut and paste. And my ocean.updates. Because I want my ocean to be on the beginning screen and the last screen. Again, you may do it differently than me. And the other thing that I'm missing is this part right here. There we go. So there's the things that I need to make my game almost complete. I still got some issues. What issues do I have? I don't have a custom font I'd like to add next time. I don't have bullet firing. I don't have an enemy. I don't have some kind of thing to show that I'm picking up my mail, like some kind of mail. That's an object that says that. I don't have explosions. I don't have particle systems. I don't have multiple levels. I have lots of stuff I don't have. This is just the first playable release, right? So let's see how this looks now. So I'm going to save everything. I'm going to go back here, start. I can't move. Okay, this is no good. I got to change my game over to bigger. So I'm going to go to my game over scene. And let's change my game over scene to make it much bigger. Let's say 60 over, make it consoleless. And 320 by 240 is okay, but I want to make it yellow because that's the way I'm making my fonts right now. All right, my back button shouldn't say back button, right? My back button should say restart. So I need another button, right? Can't say back button. So that means I got to go add another asset. Guys, this is bare minimum stuff that I'm talking about, okay? This isn't like crazy things that I expect that you can't do, right? But the problem is, that's why I give you a couple more days, because you need time to do all this stuff, right? And there's no time. There's no time. There's never enough time to do all the things that you want to do, right, in your game. And you got to say at some point, it's good enough. It's good enough, right? Make sure you meet the criteria, is what I always say. Make sure you always do that. The criteria are the number one things you need to meet first. So back, we'll change this back button to a restart button. I don't have a restart button. Okay, and then I'll file, save as. I'll call this the restart button, right? If I have my back button, I'm going to leave my back button there and preloaded. Maybe I'm going to make another screen that needs a back button, right? But for now, I'm making my restart button that is something different, right? All right, going back to my game. In order for me to use my back button, I need to add it to my scene. So I'm going to go to my core game.ts. I'm going to load it. So I've got my back button, but I'm going to call my restart button something new. I also have a test button called click me button that I don't need right now, but I'm loading anyway. And here's my restart button. Right? Here's my restart button. Okay. Okay, cool. Let's go to my over scene and load it. So my over scene is, instead of using a back button, let's change it all to restart button. So back button will rename to restart button. Okay. And this is going to change to restart button. Click, rename. Restart button, click. Okay, so that's all changed. And of course, instead of it being the back button, I'm going to call the restart button. Right, so that's the right button now. Because before I was going to call the back button. Okay, we're good to go. Let's see how that looks now. So I'm going to go back to my game. Play. Whoa, that was crazy. Restart, right? So my restart button is there now, right? I can go back. Oh, that was crazy. I was going to attack by the clouds there for a second. Okay, died.
Yay.
Really unlucky, like totally unlucky this time around. Wow. Okay, and it'd be nice if I had my game over on my high score, right? Which I already have. I've already provisioned for it, but I got to bring it in somehow, right? Uh-oh. How the heck do I do that, right? Because my game over is actually a score that evaporates when I kill my play scene, right? So what we need to do is store it again somewhere. So it's not that difficult. Not the most elegant way of doing it, but let's just do it. We'll put another thing that says high score, public static score, which is of type number. And what I'm going to do is, in my play scene, keep track of my high score, right? Here's my play scene. when I get a life in my manager, my collision manager, here's my collision manager, I'm going to add a life. And what I'm going to say is if objects.game.scoreboard.highscore, right, is less than objects.game.scoreboard.score, right, then objects.game, just copy paste. So I'm getting a little bit lazy, is equal to, right, the other one. So it's going to, so if it's somehow less, if my score goes higher when I add my score, right? If it's higher, and maybe what I'm going to say is less than or equal to instead of less than, right? So if it's less than or equal to, because sometimes my score can slip to be the same, I want to change my high score value, right? Now remember, all my high score value does is it increases my high score value locally, right? So my local high score. But when my high score gets changed here, right, I want to make it so that it also changes my high score for whatever reason, because sometimes I want to know my high score. I might want to change my objects. Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes. Objects.game. High score is equal to this as well. This is two. I'm tracking it twice, and you may say, well, why do you need to do that? You'll see. All right, so I've got my high score, blah, 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 blah. I'm keeping track of both, right? And once I've done this, right, I have everything I need for my high score. So if I go to my overseen, now I can have my high score label. And I don't have to have my high score label because it already exists. I've already made my high score label in my scoreboard, right? So all I have to do is add my scoreboard. So private, I can say that it's called scoreboard, which is of type managers.scoreboard. Again, I mean, this is, you can do it different ways. I'm just doing, this is the one way I'm thinking about right now. Maybe next iteration, I'll do it slightly different. Okay, so I do that, and then I, my label, my whatever, and then I want to add my scoreboard. I'm going to say this dot underscore scoreboard is equal to a new managers scoreboard, right? And that. And what I want to do is I want to add my scoreboard, but it's going to be higher than everything else. So my ocean, my over label, my restart button, and then like I did before, I'm going to put my scoreboard. So add scoreboard. The scene. This dot add child. This dot underscore scoreboard. Scoreboard dot high score label. Right? Is my high score label. Now I don't know if my high score label is going to work because when I made my scoreboard, I never tested it. So it might be in the wrong position. We'll find out in a second. Probably is going to be in the wrong position. Right, so let's try this out. So start. Yay. Clobbered again. Yay. Really unfair. Game's totally unfair. Okay, hold it. And look, I can't even go anywhere. Oh, look, just barely dodging the clouds here with the speed of 5. Oh, I totally missed that. Oh no. Okay, yeah. So you see that game over is right, but you see that I have to go here, and looks like my high score is 0, right? And that's a problem. So I got to figure this out. So I need to put my game over higher. Like instead of here, it's got to be higher up, and my high score is in the right position. So going back to my game, back to the drawing board. My game over label is where it is right now. It's right here. It's at 60 pixels, and I want to make it instead of 320. Let's put it up a little higher. Let's make it at 220. All right. No, let's put that back to 320. Sorry, I meant to put this up at 140. And And let's play it again. Let's actually get a score going. So I noticed it's 0 score, right?
Yay. 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 Yay.
It's good, but my score is 0. And I know why. Because my high score, when I instantiate it, instantiates with 0. And what I need to do is I need to, as soon as I instantiate my high score, I need to change the score. So I'll say that this, that underscore scoreboard dot high score is equal to object, this is where it comes in, dot game dot high score. When I do that, it's going to change my, sorry, this is wrong. High score. Yeah, no, this is right. High score is equal to high score. High score is equal to number and objects.game.high score type game. Why? Oh, I spelled it wrong. That's horrible. I'm spelling it right, and then I'm going to go and fix it. So, yeah, that sucks. There's a couple places I need to change that. You guys didn't tell me? You guys probably watch me and going, look, he spelled it wrong. Let's see how he's going to troubleshoot that one. High score. Thanks, guys. Nice of you all, right? All right, so yeah, and it's also going to be my collision is going to be wrong too now because my collision will also be wrong, right? And I can see that Visual Studio Code helps me because it shows me what the problem is over here, right? Yeah. Okay, that should do everything. Oops, wait, one more time. Make sure I save everything. Fantastic. And come on. That was like just not fair. Oh, I'm not even going to get a score here at all. 100.
Yay.
I'm trying to enjoy my game, okay?
Yay.
The game I've made a million times. Oh!
Yay.
Right, hold on a second. Moving around. Oh, yeah, it's really hard. What? What? What did I do now? I know what I did. You guys watch me do it again. You guys knew. I'm telling you right now. You probably looked at it and you guys saw it and you're like, we're not going to tell them. Right? We're not going to tell them. Look what I did. All right? It's not there. It's got to be something else. It's got to say something like, so if it says objects.game.scoreboard.score plus equal to 100, right? And it's basically saying if my objects.game.scoreboard.highscore is less than or equal to objects.game.scoreboard.score, if it's less than or equal to, then objects.game.scoreboard.highscore is equal to objects.game.scoreboard.score. So that's what they are. And then I set my objects.game.highscore to equal to the high score. And that should totally work. So what the heck happened? What the heck? So that means inside my it might be in my scoreboard itself. So this is just like troubleshooting again 101. So let's take a look inside my scoreboard. And I don't like doing this in front of you guys because it takes forever, but it's part of it, right? High score. I probably made a mistake. Oh, here it is. See that? Thank God I corrected it. You guys would have had a problem. High score. Right? So it was right, but when I got my score, it's not the real score. It's like lives because I use getters and setters. That was a copy paste error. All right, let's see if that works now. Woo! And then I'll put everything up on GitHub. See, this is all troubleshooting. So I'm trying to get all my first playable done for you. And sometimes you think it's working, but then when you test something, it's like, if you don't test it, you don't know it, right? Oh, okay. Oof.
Yay.
Oh. Okay, that was pretty cool. Oh,
Yay.
Damn it. Right?
Yay.
Okay, come on. Gotta try and get the high score here.
Yay.
Oh.
Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
pretty cool. 600. Oh,
Yay.
no. Oh, okay. Oh, wait. I'm not going to get another one.
Yay.
Yes, I will. Oh, slip right through the clouds. And
Yay.
come on, let's go to 1,000. Oh! Wait, we're not done yet. This only shows my first score. If I restart, my score will start over, right? My high score, if I do better, I don't know how I'm going to do better than that, by the way. I don't know. That was a good one. I don't know how I'm going to do it. But let's see what happens. Oh,
Yay.
okay, wait. Oh, that was pretty crazy. I got to get ready. There's got to be like a get ready screen for this thing.
Yay.
Right. Oh.
Yay.
Okay, maybe I'll do it.
Yay.
No.
Yay.
No. That was crazy.
Yay.
No. Oh, wow.
Yay.
Okay, come on. Come on. Oh, I'm not going to take a chance.
Yay.
Okay, cool. Yay, I did it. No, wait. What's happening? No. So I went from 900 to 1,000. Saw that my high score was good. One more test. I tested that it went to the highest. Now I got to test that it doesn't change if I don't do it, right? These are all tests that you have to make sure that things are working, right? You have to test all cases, right? So, whoa, what?
Yay.
What's happening? Oh no, something's happening with my controls. I'm not joking. Oh, that's wrong. See? Oh, see, that's me. I told you have to check it out. I don't know what's happening. It shouldn't change, guys. What the heck is going on? Looks like I gotta. Oh, that's good. Okay,
Yay.
I'll fix it. All right, so back to the drawing board.
Yay.
I like that play. So what happened here? Why did it change? So it went to the highest score, but then somehow the change went into effect where 0 was equal to or higher. Something like that happened. And I wanted to show you a debugging screen before we continue. So notice that I have a bunch of stuff we've tested with Visual Studio Code, right? But there is a debugging version as well. I don't know if you've seen this before. There's this little bug here. Now, in order for you to make this, you have to change your configuration, right? So right now I have a configuration that I need to change and add a configuration. And what I want to do is I want to use Chrome. Okay, I'm choosing Chrome, not Node, Chrome. So now when I add a configuration in Visual Studio Code, what it does is it launches Chrome in another with another port, right? And what this does, that's good actually. I'll leave it alone. What this does is it enables me to click this little run button. When I click the run button, it launches Chrome in another browser altogether, which is really cool, right? So here's another browser. It's this browser here with that can't be located. No. And it works great typically, except when it's in front of you, right? Then it doesn't work at all, right? But basically what it does is with the configuration set up, it allows you to do just like any kind of debugging, right? Did I mess anything? I might have messed something up. Let me see, undo that. Okay. I don't think I messed anything up. I just think it's not working for me today. But basically what it does is when you have this configuration, notice that I have this .vs code and it has launch.json. That's what it creates. And if everything was to work properly, what you can do is you can create a breakpoint, right? Just like normally, right? I want to know whenever I go into my collision manager. So if I go to my collision manager.ts, and whenever I'm going to this line right here, I can create a breakpoint, right? I think I should try this out if you can make it work. If I press, run, it'll launch Chrome. Of course, it won't work. But when it does, right, when it does work properly, and it might be because I'm running light server at the same time as well, right? But if you try this out, it actually works really, really good. And it creates an instance of your game running at the same time. And I'm wondering if I just stop light server for a second, if that will help me. It may not help at all, right? Let's try that again. I don't think this is going to work, by the way. Yeah, see how it shuts down like that? That was my instance that it would be running on, right? And so it doesn't work. But try it out, guys. It's really great. Just not great for me right now. 8080? Nah. Yeah, I don't have anything working on 8080 right now. But I can change that. Let's change it to 3000. How about that? Or because I'm not using 3000. So just to go with what you said, let's make it so that it's something else. I'm willing to try that. I don't think it's the cause of it, though. So just one more try. And if I don't, I just want to troubleshoot to see what the problem is. What do you guys think is the problem? Why do you think it's going to lower rather than higher? Let's go to, yeah, we'll use 3000 because right now 3000 is not being used. Okay. So I shut off light server. Okay. So again, I'm going back to here. I'm going to, if I launch this thing and if I put a breakpoint where I want to, so I go back to my collision manager and I put a breakpoint right here. And if I run my debugging, it'll run. If you see this launch properly, it'll launch in the right place, in the right position. See, it's not working. It just keeps going like cycling like this. Oh, come on. Oh, it's trying. It really is. I just don't see how it's going to work. And it could be because I'm doing cross, I'm loading up files that are cross origin files. Whoa, well, that's me. Oh, it's running on 3000. Yeah, let's shut that down. Try that one more time. That should work. It says, cannot continue to runtime process timeout after 10,000 milliseconds. And it's not, it doesn't like 3000. Anyways, guys, like I said, this normally works great. You should try it out. It's not working for me. It could be because I'm broadcasting, could be because of a lot of reasons, right? So I'm not going to tell you that it's no good. The great thing about it is even if you put a breakpoint in here like this, it could tell you specific values of all this stuff that we can't know right now until I do console.logs, right? So let's just puzzle it out by what this does. So I plus equal, so I actually add 100 points. Okay, then I check to see. So normally if I restart the game, right, my high score, does it ever go to 0? Yeah. I can use the browser debugger too. But let's puzzle this out for a second. So think about this right now, right? I instantiate my scoreboard, brand new scoreboard, every single time that I come into play, right? And when I create my new scoreboard, right? Yeah, it's telling me that it's erasing memory. When I create my new scoreboard, it creates a new value, creates 0 and like lives that are 5 and score that's 0, right? And then when I get a new score, it checks that my high score, if I make 100 points, it says, well, okay, objects.game.scoreboard.highscore. Oh, there it is. And once I do that, it's done. It already does it. So what I need to do is I got to do something like this. I got to say that I got to do this in terms of I got to check to see if my global variable, another if statement, say if my global variable is lower. If it is, then put it there, right? Because my high score that I'm keeping track of, my current score and my high score, I may have two variables that I'm carrying for no reason. Like, for example, I have my high score that's inside of my my scoreboard, and I have my high score that's inside my global variable, and I'm replacing my global variable by my high score every time, even when I do this, right? So instead of checking my high score on my scoreboard, I should be checking it on my global variable. I should say game.highscore. If less than score, then I set the game.scoreboard.highscore and the game.highscore. That's it. That's the check I have to make. One more time. And then I swear we're done with this one. All right. Then I got to do that. I got to put it up on GitHub. Let's see what happens, right? All right, so I'll take this debugging off, go to here, and I have to run it on here. So I'll say light-server. It should run everything. Here we go. Start. Didn't escape. got the points, 100 points. Okay, what happened there? So high score is undefined. I did get 100 points, right? I did get 100 points. Let's show you. I'll show you that again.
Yay.
So the 100 points, 200
Yay.
points. Let's just die now, right? Not cool. Right? That's not cool. So where does that happen? So that's something else. So I know this sounds like it's nothing, guys, but really, I mean, you're going to run into this problems again. So, okay, so objects.game.highscore. Well, there is no, until I set it, objects.game.highscore has no value. So when it does this check, it's never going to pass because it's undefined. So because it's undefined, this is never going to pass, which means it's never going to be sent. Which means that in my scenes, when I set up my game, this is where I have globals, which is really bad, right? But if I go to my my scenes.playscene, right? Or in my objects.game scene, something like that. Objects.game.ts. What if I was to set this to 0 as a start, like one of these? If I did this, that's kind of cheating, sorry, but let's see what happens. I just want to make this run so we can move on, guys. So sorry. Okay, die. Cool. Okay, restart. Hopefully I'll get higher than 200, higher than 100.
Yay.
Okay, 200,
Yay.
200, come on. I see 300.
Yay.
I do. Okay, let's die. 400. Okay, now I want to get lower than 400, right? Which is easy.
Yay.
Right? So that covers everything. That covers all three cases. The lower case, the higher case, and back down to the lower case again, right? Otherwise, you don't know what's going to happen, right? All right, and that was a little bug. Look how long it took me. It took me 20 minutes to troubleshoot something stupid, right? So, guys, it happens all the time. That's why you need to give yourself time. This stuff is from scratch. I can't tell you enough. And let me talk about the troubles of putting things up on GitHub pages at this point. Okay, I want to talk about that for a second. And then we'll let you go. If you stay with me for 10 more minutes, I know I'm pushing you to the last minute, but stay with me. Trust me, it'll be good. First of all, let's put this up on GitHub. So these are all the changes I made. I'm going to say finished first playable. Right? I'm going to add all these things. We'll draw the things I tested. And then push. Which means everything that I've got for the game, if you're watching from the first class, then you'll have everything that you need for your first playable at this point. If you did a game that's fairly simple. If you're doing a platformer, you still have lots of work to do. Like physics. Okay, so I've got this thing great, but I want to close this down now for a second, okay? And I want to stop this funky thing, and I want to talk about GitHub pages one more time. So I want to put this up on GitHub pages, but I got a problem. I got a problem because under my new this is my development build, right? And if I do a list, you can see that, or a directory. I have this tsconfig.json, and if I do ls-al, I have this gitignore file. What is this gitignore file ignoring? Yeah. Can I run this live without node modules? Nope. I can't have my .gitignore in my deployment build. Development build, absolutely. Deployment build, these node modules have to be there. Okay? So that's an issue. That's a real issue. So when I make my copy, I'm going to make a brand new application, right? And I have a build. I have a place that I put everything, right? Just to show you this, right? So if you look online, I have this Ciliopoulos.github.io link, right? This one here. And this link here is, I have everything I need, except I'm going to get rid of my template data. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to keep my CNAME. I'm going to get rid of my index.html. and my build. Remember, this came from my Unity build, right? I'm just going to get rid of my Unity build and replace my Unity build with the build we just made, okay? So if I actually go into GitHub, right, by my command line, or let's just go to this folder, CD space, and I switch into this folder for a second, okay? So I'm switching into my Celiopoulos.github.io. So you have your account, whatever it's called, .github.io, right? And if I look, you see that there is a .git folder, right? Take a look. So -al, I have a .git folder. I want to keep this. For you, you would create a brand new folder, right? Called whatever your account name is, .github.io, and put up your files in here. So I've made my project under my other files, my other project right here. Right? Now, this is not a development build, so I don't care about commits. This is not for that. This is for taking all of this stuff, right? All of this, not including my .gitignore file or my .git folder or any other hidden folders, right? And I want to copy this. And I'm going to put this in here. Okay, so that's my new deployment build. Development builds, deployment builds. Because if I look at it now, you can see that I have node modules. Sometimes what happens is, though, I got to be honest with you, we may have some problems with our images, all right? But for now, I have all this stuff. And if I go ls, or if I go clear, and if I do git log, right? These are my previous commits, right? If I do git status, I can see that I deleted all these things and I added all these things, right? I just want to show you this, right? And now I'm going to say git push origin master. And if I did things correctly, git add dot, sorry, git commit -m. Now you normally put initial commit. I'm going to put in added create.js project. Git push origin master. When I push it up, you're going to see that everything I have, including my node modules, are going to go to my celiopoulos.github.io.git. That means that on my Celiopoulos website, I should see, if I did things properly, and it's not proper because I have to refresh, and it's also cached. Let's go into another browser because right now it's caching. Let's see if I can go to Firefox for a second, where it's not cached. Cached there too, right? It's cached here too, because that's why it's happening. You try it, please. Huh? Say that again. Incognito window. Yeah, I could try that. I don't know if that's really the problem though, but let's try it out. So new incognito window. That's good. Now, here's the problem. Notice that there's no images, right? Remember we talked about this. If I look at my inspect tool, and if I go to my console, you can see that there's a bunch of errors, right? It says failed to load resource, tween, easel, sound, preload, tween, all this stuff, right? Let's see what I got. Do I have a gitignore file? No, right? This is important, right? That means let's check my github.io, right? So let's go to GitHub and let's go to my, I'm in incognito window now. Let's leave this up for a second. Let's go to my GitHub, but go to my GitHub, not Centennial, right? All right, and let's go into my repositories just for a second. Guys, I'm not sure if I'm going to time out on here for sure. But if I go to this one, notice that I put these things up. Here's node modules. Here's easel and preload and sound and tween. They're correct. But, when I look at my index.html, right, I see that it goes /node modules, easel.js, /, And sometimes the pathing on Chrome, on GitHub Pages gives you an error here. Node modules, easel.js, lib, right? So sometimes we have to figure this out. So, and this is the problem. This is why it's causing me to have an issue, right? Because it can't find something. I could do the CDN, but the CDN would be okay, but it's an older CDN than the latest one, right? And then that's going to cause all my other stuff. So my pathing is the problem right now. The way I put // right? I may have to take the / away and just put node modules, no //. And that may be the cause. I don't have time to fix it right now. But when we come back 2 weeks from now, it'll be fixed, right? So again, do tomorrow, not tomorrow, but on Monday, you've got your first playable. I've given you most of what you want. GitHub is a good solution. You can also try Microsoft Azure or other places, but you need to find a live site, okay, that'll host your files, okay? If you can't do it, because I couldn't do it, if you can't do it by Monday, it's okay, all right? I will accept it the way it is. If you can do it by Monday, bonus, because then you're ahead for the final, okay? Guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.